The answer is it is not enough. شرع من قبلنا شرع لنا ما لم ننه عنه في شرعنا. That is the principle of Sharia. That the Sharia of those before us is a Sharia for us unless we have something contrary in our own Sharia. Then our own Sharia will supersede. That's logical. Even if something is mentioned in the previous scriptures, but some people are making that mistake today. The fact that we have scripture before Al-Quran al-Kareem that we must equally regard and respect at least the original scriptures. But that doesn't mean that we should follow blindly whatever is mentioned in those scriptures. They are not our scriptures. So Sharia man qablana, a Sharia of those who were before us, will be a Sharia for us unless we have something contrary to it in our own Sharia. Let me give you one example. In some of the past scriptures, it is not illegal to marry two sisters as your wives. Yes, it was legal in their own Sharia. But categorically in our own Sharia, Quran says, وَأَن تَجْمَعُوا بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ. That except those that are preceded, those ones have gone. Allah has that power, that authority to change his laws, just as we human beings do. The fact that he has made something to be so in the past doesn't make it compulsory on him to make it as it is today. He can change his law, and that is why the scholars of Islam will say Sharia of those before us will only be Sharia for us if we don't have anything contrary to it in our own Sharia. So, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. La'allakum tattaqun. This is the bottom line. This is the wisdom. This is the reason behind the obligation to fast. Allah does not benefit in any way from you abstaining from drinking, abstaining from eating. It does not increase him in anything. Neither does it decrease him in anything. But there must be a reason for anything that has been commanded by Almighty Allah. There must be what we call al-hikmah. Allah does not just command anything without having a strong reason for it. And He's telling us clearly here. And this is, as I always tell people, it's like giving us a barometer. It's like giving us a yardstick to measure whether the fasting I and you are observing is in line with the fasting He intended or not. This is the barometer. This is the test. He said, I've made fasting compulsory on you. Why? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So that you may become pious. You may become righteous. You may become obedient. If your own fasting has not moved you from the level of disobedience to Almighty Allah in many respects, from the level of not being righteous, from the level of not being pious, then you should examine yourself. This is not the fasting that was intended by Almighty Allah. Here it is saying clearly. The reason why I've made fasting compulsory on you is for you to gain piety. So if your fasting has not succeeded in giving you that piety, you must examine yourself. Where have you gotten it wrong? And retrace your steps. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Please let us use this one. We are just on the first day of Ramadan. Measure yourself. Weigh yourself. Are you improving in your faith, in your piety, in your righteousness, in your being truthful, in your kindness, in many respects? It is only when you are so doing that you are really fasting in the way and manner intended and ordered and commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this has been clearly amplified by by a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, authentic hadith, wherein he said, رُبَّ صَائِمٍ لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. The Prophet said, you will find so many people abstaining from eating and drinking, fasting from daybreak to sunset, but at the end of the day, he will have nothing to show. لَيْسَ لَهُ. He will have nothing to show for that, except that he was hungry. That's the only thing he can show. He can show for it at the end of the day. May Allah not every one of us be one of these categories. But as the Prophet has said it, we will have them in our midst. People that will be fasting, and at the end of the day, the only thing they gain from that fasting is hunger. لَيْسَ لَهُ مِنْ صِيَامِهِ إِلَّا الْجُوعُ. It means that fasting has not given him the piety that he is intended originally. So please let us do whatever is humanly possible during this month of Ramadan in particular to become closer to Almighty Allah, to become more righteous, to become more pious, to become more to become somebody that will be improving in the levels of your faith or righteousness and the rest of them. Because this is the wisdom. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And as I said, this has been amplified in this hadith. That we will have some people equally fasting the way the Prophet observed his fasting, the way the companions observed their fasting. But the difference is in the outcome. The difference lies in the outcome. When some people will be rewarded, the Prophet ﷺ said on the day of resurrection, there will be a special gate. Nobody will get entrance to Al-Jannah through that gate except who? The fasting Muslim. If somebody's outcome, the result of fast is hunger, will he be allowed entrance in such a gate? No, never. So it's a waste. You find people fasting today and engaging blatantly in what is disrespectful of the teachings of Islam. Some will even be engaging in parties, dancing with opposite sex, listening to music, doing all sorts of things that ordinarily even before Ramadan the Muslims should keep away from. But in Ramadan, it's very, very unfortunate. It means Ramadan has not succeeded in reforming you. Ramadan is a month that must reform all of us. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So please, let us take note of this one. Allah is not interested in you abstaining from eating, from drinking, or nothing. That has a purpose. And that purpose has been categorically mentioned here. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And that is why in another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَنْ لَمْ يَدَعِ قَوْلَ الزُّورِ وَالْعَمَلَ بِهِ وَالْجَهَلِ فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةٌ أَنْ يَدَعَ طَعَامَهُ وَشَرَابَهُ. Anyone that finds it impossible for him or her to abstain from vulgar talk, vain speech, indecent talk in the month of Ramadan, or even acting in that way, anything that will show ignorance of him or her, ignorance of the injunctions and instructions of Almighty Allah. Anybody that finds it impossible for him to abstain from all this, the Prophet said, فَلَيْسَ لِلَّهِ حَاجَةٌ. Allah is not in need. Haja is not in need of his abstinence from eating, from drinking, from having affairs with his or her spouse. That is not the intention. So please, let us try as much as humanly possible. And one of the best ways of reforming yourself is what we are doing now. Make sure that you are always, you always find an opportunity for you to read yourself or listen to others reading and comprehending and reflecting on the meanings and messages of the Quran, it will improve your level of faith and give you taqwa that is intended in your act of fasting. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And when scholars talk about taqwa, fear of Almighty Allah, they draw our attention to one important fact. That being a pious does not mean you will not see things that will call you to become something else. You will see things that will attract you to go the other way. But it is your ability to now set your record straight. Say, I won't go that way. We are not angels. We are not living in paradise. You will see, you will hear, you will be invited to many things that you know are not in compliance with what Almighty Allah wants. But being a pious means your ability to restrain yourself. That is it. And that is why one of the great scholars of Islam, one of the predecessors of Muslims, describe it in a very beautiful way. When someone asks him, how do I become pious? Have the fear of Almighty Allah always. He told him, have you ever found yourself walking in a valley full of thorns? We all know thorns that can injure you when you are walking in a bush. He said, have you ever found yourself walking in a valley, left and right, they are all full of thorns? Sinful act. Disobedience unto Almighty Allah is what is being described as thorns. They are thorns in your flesh. He said, oh, I've had such an experience in the past. So how did you do? He said, well, I tried as much as possible. I move right. If the turn is on my left, if I find it on my right, I move left. If it is on my left, I move right. He said, that is how you can live successfully in this life and be pious. You will see a lot of things that are not pleasing to Almighty Allah. But can you avoid them? That is where piety is. We are not promised that when we come to this heart, everything will just be attracting us to Al-Jannah. Many things will call people to hell. But what makes a difference between who will end up in paradise and who will end up in hell is your ability to restrain yourself from going that way. And that is the true meaning of taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. The Almighty Allah make all of us pious and righteous in this month of Ramadan and even beyond. Ayyaman ma'dudat. You see, Allah is very, very merciful. Just as I told you, He will simplify things for us, make it attractive to us, as if we have a choice of not doing it. We don't have. But that is part of the beauty of Islam. It's not just imposing on us. It will justify it, make it attractive, make us happy. Oh, make us see reasons why we should do. This is one of those ways. Allah said, the fasting that I've made compulsory on you, it's not for the whole year. It's not for the whole lifetime. Do you know that some of the people of the past, they used to fast for half of their lifetime? Do you know that? A prophet, a beloved prophet of Allah, Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, throughout his own lifetime, he observed fasting for half of his age. That means if he lived for 100 years, he observed fasting for 50 years. If he lived for 90, that means he observed fasting for 45 years. Because he will eat one day and fast the other day, and fast the fourth day, and eat the fourth day, until the end of his lifetime. If that has been the command of Almighty Allah, we wouldn't have any choice but to abide. But He's so merciful, He's telling us, Ayyaman ma'dudat, limited number of days. Allahu Akbar. When in Arabic they say ma'dudat, it means literally counting. Something that you can count on your fingers. That is Ramadan for you. Ayyaman ma'dudat. They are countable. Limited number of days. Why are you so worried? Why are you in pain? Why are you sad that Ramadan is approaching? A Muslim, for that matter, you should be happy. Ayyaman ma'dudat. limited number of days. And you see, part of the mercy of Almighty Allah, this is not even peculiar to Ramadan alone. It's only Shaitan that deceives human beings to make us see the injunctions, the instructions of Almighty Allah as being too heavy. They are very, very light. I'm repeating it. Shaitan will make the commands of Allah, the instructions, the directives of Almighty Allah to be so heavy. Oh, some people will even complain, but others are not doing. Why? Because why are Muslims so troubling themselves? Ayyaman ma'dudat. It's a very limited number of days. And these permeates all other acts of ibadah that we engage in. All. What Allah requests from us is the minimum, the barest minimum. It's only Shaitan that will not let you see it that way. Let me give you instances. You pray 5 times a day. Please tell me, how many hours do you need to observe the 5 obligatory prayers? Even if you pray like the Imam of Makkah, you don't need more than 2 hours from experience and experiences of all of us to observe the 5 daily prayers. You don't need more than 2 hours. So even under 30 minutes, they are done. But please try to calm down when you are praying. It's part of the obligations. But at most, let's say you need 2 hours. Out of how many hours in a day? 24 hours. So the rest 22 are for you. Do whatever you like. Go to work. Pursue your degrees. Pursue your career. Go and enjoy yourself in a legal and illegitimate way. You are serving yourself. You are not serving God. Out of 24 hours in a day, the obligation is for you to serve Him for 2 hours. Yet, this will look so heavy on some Muslims. They will pray just once in a day. Some are even praying once in a week. Some will only pray Ramadan and call themselves Muslims. And like I said, we have to stop here, but we will continue from this one. When we will think critically, we will realize that the injunctions, the instructions of Islam on us, they are always asking for the barest minimum. The barest minimum. The least. But Shaitan will make it look like a heavy body. This month of Ramadan, why did Allah say Ayyama Ma'dudat? We have 365 days in a year. 365 days in a year. You only fast for 29 or 30. Which one is bigger? 365 in a year. If he had so wished to say fast for 330 something, then eat for just 30 something or 40 years, would you have a choice? We won't. But that is part of the mercy. And that is how all the instruction of Almighty Allah is asking for the minimum. Let me close by giving this parable that I gave some years back in Lagos. I said, you see, this month of Ayyama Ma'dudat is like, let us put ourselves in this circumstance. You are an employer of labor. You have employees, people working for you. All of us, most of us are employees. Our employer will say, if you serve me for 11 months, go on a month leave. You say, thank you, sir. You know, some people are not even given a month leave. You work all the year. But let us look at it that way. An employer is not a creator. Just have that opportunity of having more resources than you. He employs you. He will give you a condition of serving him for 11 months before you are entitled to a respite of 1 month. Allah is doing the opposite. Do we realize that? Can't you realize that? Eat, drink, enjoy yourself, work for yourself for 11 months, then serve me for 1 month. I doubt if there is any employer in this world that will do that. That will agree for you to serve him for just 1 month and allow you to be on your way for 11 months and pay you full salary. That is what Allah is doing. Ayyaman ma'dudat. On this note, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let whatever we have listened to today to be beneficial to us in this life and in the next. And inshallah ta'ala, the Ramadan Tafsir continues tomorrow, same time, same place. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.